Hey, welcome back to keepsmilingenglish.com. In today's video, we're going to talk about the word rather. Rather. As you may know, I already talked about the word rather in this post here, but I have received a question from a user of keepsmilingenglish.com asking me about the difference between rather than and the expression instead of. But before I start with that difference, I will explain the three different uses of the word rather, and then I will answer that particular question for. As I said, the word rather can be used in three different ways, okay? The first one is as a synonym of the word quite, okay? You can say, I'm rather tired today, or this book is rather difficult to understand. It's rather rainy today, okay? Rather, quite, very, okay? Now the second use is in the expression would rather, okay? Which is a synonym of prefer. The only difference is that prefer can be followed by an infinitive with to or an ing form, whereas would rather is always followed by a bare infinitive or by a past subjunctive. A bare infinitive is an infinitive without to. For example, you'd say, I'd rather not drink any coffee in the afternoons because then I can't sleep at night. Or I'd rather go to the cinema than stay at home. Or you can say, I'd rather you didn't talk about my private things in public. I'd rather you didn't share my secrets with other people. And the third use of rather is in the expression rather than, which indicates a preference. Okay, so you'd say, I prefer going to the cinema rather than staying at home. Or I prefer fiction novels rather than newspapers. So you see that we usually have to use the word prefer because with rather than we have to compare two options as regards our preference. Now, answering the question, rather than and instead of are very similar expressions. They both express preference, but instead of is not really a preference. It's more of a substitution of something. You can say, for example, I prefer the Lord of the Rings rather than the Hobbit. Okay, I like both, but I prefer the Lord of the Rings rather than the Hobbit. But, for example, if you use instead of, you can say, instead of going to the cinema, we stayed at home. Okay? It's not that you preferred staying at home, it's that you did it instead of, in place of going to the cinema. So you didn't go to the cinema. You could also use instead at the end of a sentence, okay? You can say, we didn't go to the cinema, full stop. We stayed at home, comma, instead. Okay, we stayed at home instead. Or you can use it at the beginning of a sentence. We didn't go to the cinema, full stop. Instead, we stayed at home. But when you use rather than, you're inevitably expressing a preference, an opinion of that something, an option is better than another one, okay? Which instead of is not really the case. However, in some cases they are interchangeable. So you shouldn't worry too much about this, but you should know one thing, okay? And that is that rather than goes followed by the same kind of verb or the same word class that it's preceded by, okay? For example, you say, I prefer going to the cinema rather than staying. So we have going rather than staying. But instead of always has to be followed by an ing form that is a gerund or a noun phrase. We watched football instead of watching basketball. Okay, so we have watched, past simple, and then watching, the ing form. Or you can say we watched football instead of basketball and simply use the noun. But remember, instead of, because we have the preposition of, always has to be followed by a noun or a gerund. That is the verb in ing form. So I hope that answered your question. And for the rest of you, please click like and subscribe. And don't forget to follow me on Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and Google+. And don't forget to keep smiling. Bye-bye.